Good morning, Artificial Hearts family. It's a pleasure to be with you all again. Today we have a very uh powerful, I want to say, pre interview with a really special guest, Frank Hasel, all the way from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Frank. We're really glad that you're here with us.
Thank you.
Uh,
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Frank, we were wondering, could you please introduce yourself to our audience, who you are, just so we can know a little bit more about you, like where you're from, and also what you're currently doing right now.
All right. Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
So my name is Frank Hasel, and that is a German name. I was born and raised in Germany, lived in different countries, in England, many years in Austria, in Europe. That is the country where they don't have kangaroos. They have the
Yeah.
sound of music there.
Yeah.
And now I live in the United States. And I like good books, as you can see from my little library
Yes.
in the back of my room here. And I also enjoy new insights and stimulating conversations. So I'm looking forward to our conversation here. And right now I am an associate director at the Biblical Research Institute at the world headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church here in Silver Spring, Maryland, United States.
Fantastic. Frank, you just released a new book that all of you can access on Amazon now. It's out on Amazon. It's titled Love Is. Could
Yes.
you please tell us a little bit about your new book, and maybe kind of the long story, like why did you choose to write this book? What
Yeah.
motivated you to write this book? And the title. And I'll repeat those questions. I know it's a lot, but maybe let's start with what's kind of what motivated you to write this kind of book. And if yeah, you can please show it to our audience. If yeah,
That's the book we're talking about
fantastic.
here. So I'm happy
Okay.
to share a little bit about it. Yes, this is the book that is the longest in the making, really.
Wow.
I wanted to write that book for a long, long, long time. In fact, I started writing on that book, I think, some 12, 15 years ago. Not that I constantly thought about it and that it was constantly on my mind, but every once in a while it crossed my mind, and finally it matured to the point that I felt comfortable working more on it and finishing it. And I'm happy that it is released. So what it is all about, this is really the story, part of my life and the experience of experiencing significant loss in life. When my wife died, she had breast cancer and didn't survive that. And when you go through an experience of that magnitude, this is a tough one and not so easy to deal with. And it creates a lot of different emotions and feelings, and it changes your life in significant ways that the normal person has not the slightest idea about. And so I share a little bit about that experience in my book and share about that. And I think and I hope, and that's the audience that I want to address and reach with that book. It's not just for people who have lost a spouse. It's a person, it's a book for anyone who has lost a loved one, but even more than that, for anyone who knows a person who has lost a loved one. You know, sometimes we know people who have lost a child or a spouse or a parent or whatever it is, whoever it is, and then we are not sure how to relate to these people, what to say, what better not to say, and we grapple to understand why are they grumpy at times, why is their life turned upside down, etc. And so the book really is a resource, I hope and think, that can help people understand better what is going on in the life of a person who has lost a loved one and is going through various feelings and experiences that are so life-changing and transformative.
Would you
Yeah.
be willing to maybe give a little bit of just a preview of how that journey was? I mean, obviously, we don't want to spoil it for the reader for the book, but maybe a little bit of how that kind of journey was. And also, I was kind of curious about how was it to write, having gone through that experience, and like you said, something that the normal person just doesn't understand. How was it putting that into words?
Yes, yes. A good question, Guillermo. So it all started in 2009, really, when my wife died. Uh, in October it was, and it's not that I started writing on a book right then, but a couple months later, I had the privilege of having a special 3-week health retreat that was paid by the Austrian government, really.
Oh, wow.
And uh, and in that health retreat, where I had, health related assignments and also psychological conversations with people who are trained, um, I started to write down some of my feelings, some of my memories, because the longer time goes, the less you remember, and that's a sad thing.
Mm,
And so I started writing about that and reflecting on my new identity as a widower, and reflecting on what has happened to me, to my children, what has changed in my life, the new social situation that I'm facing now as a person who is no longer married. And there are so many things that I was not even aware of,
mm,
and that usually many people are completely ignorant about, that have such a huge impact on your life when you lose your spouse,
mm,
because that is an experience that is so unique that that we even have a different word for the person who survives such an experience.
oh,
If your child dies,
mm,
you're still a parent. But if your spouse dies, you're no longer married. You are in a different social category,
oh,
and you are no longer category married. This is the same thing if you are a bachelor. If you are not married,
mhm,
then you get married, and the moment you get married
mm,
officially, you move into a different social category. You no longer belong to the non-married, to the bachelors. Now you're in a category married person.
mm,
And society recognizes that, the church recognizes that, and your friends recognize that. Things have changed, even though you still have the same friends maybe as before, but there is a different dynamic going on, and you're just not a bachelor anymore. And now, all of a sudden, you move from the category married to the category widower,
wow,
and it changes your social standing. And I was not aware of that until month and month later. A friend of mine alerted me to that detail, and it opened up my mind. And this is also a little something that I share
yeah,
in my book and talk about, because it helps to understand the new social reality that you have to face. I'm invited with friends, as I was before, and I come to their house and they are all married couples. And I immediately feel out of place, as if I don't belong to that anymore. I go to church. Usually I went to church with my wife
mm,
and I would know where to sit with her. But now I'm alone. With whom should I sit? Where should I go? And for many people, this is a reason. It might sound so insignificant and little,
mm,
but for many people, that is the reason why they avoid going to church,
oh,
even to church, because they don't know where they belong anymore, where they should sit, with whom they should have a closer social contact. And nobody wants to force himself or herself upon the grace and,
mhm,
and the mercy of another person. And so that's a challenge that a person faces once you lose your spouse. So these are just little glimpses
yeah,
into a new reality that many people are not aware of.
mm,
But that are very real for any person who has lost a spouse. And this is also what I write about. So it all started basically many years ago when I started to write about, and the moment I started writing about, when you write something, it has a wonderful ability to clarify your thoughts. So in your mind, everything swirls around and you have all kinds of thinking and thoughts about this and that. But once you start writing, it helps to clarify things. It helps to it helps you to reflect things more appropriately, and also to find words just to express what is going on in your life, in your feelings, and in your experience of that new reality. And when I did this, it was like, how should I say? It was like a liberating, cleansing experience to a
Cathartic.
certain degree, where I could put things into words and say, okay, now I've expressed it, and this is what I wanted to say, and now this can rest at least for a while, and it's off my shoulders, and it helped me to clarify things. It helped me to see things for myself in my new relationship, alone as a family father of 3 sons and 3 boys, and so that is how it all started
Mm.
in a nutshell.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And I found your book, reading it, not only to explain, to people how it is living, like the new categories that society impose
Yeah.
upon us, but I also found it very interesting, or I should say better, like very insightful and informative. And I should say, in a sense, also, I guess, spiritually fulfilling, the whole discussion on suffering. And it really
Uh-huh.
feels like this book is really like a profound, like meditation on how to live in a world where suffering is a reality, right? And I think
Yes,
we live in
yes,
a
yes.
world where there's, I think, a lot of lack of empathy, where
Mhm.
it's very easy to be self-centered, to think about oneself, and kind of
Mhm.
ignore the suffering of others and the suffering that's going all around us. And I really wanted to hear from you. I found it really interesting, and this is just one of kind of the gems of the book, that after going through this experience of loss and grief, you began to reorient your thoughts, as opposed to why me, why not me. So how does that
Yes, yes.
thinking, how did it help you, and how do you think it helps us reframe how we deal
Yeah.
in a world where we will have suffering and also frustrations, from like the most trivial to the most unordinary and profound?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you for raising that question. When you experience significant loss in life, when you go through painful experiences, the why question always comes up. No, I know of no person who does not raise that question to some degree or another. Yeah, and I think it's human, it's normal that these questions come up because they relate to our life, to our existence. And they are some of the most difficult questions there are. And if we are honest, there are not always easy answers to some of these why questions, because we just lack all the information. We lack all the knowledge that maybe God, who's omniscient, who's all knowing, knows, and we don't. But we human beings would like to know, and we would like to have answers to some of these open questions. And I think one of the experience that we have to learn to live with in this world of suffering and pain is that there are not easy answers, or perhaps not even answers at all, to some of our questions that pertain to the why. But we can know the person who knows the answers to all these questions that are hidden to us, and that is God Himself. So what helped me and my wife when we went through that experience, because we believed, and I still do, in the existence of God, and we also believe, and I still do, that God is good, that the basic nature of God is that he is love and that he loves us and he is good and he is all powerful. And because of that, uh, and because of the fact that we live in a sinful world, in a world that is not perfect, the question that was on our minds, of course, we had the why questions, but some of these why questions you cannot easily solve and answer, and therefore they can torment you. And if you're just focusing on the why question and not getting an answer, it can kind of kill you
Yeah,
emotionally
just
and
thinking
drain
about it.
you energy-wise. And and we were blessed really that we did not just were grabbed by these unanswerable questions, but we raised our own set of why questions, and that is, why should something like that uh, not happen to us?
Mm,
Why should it happen only to other people? See, some Christians, they have this strange and I think wrong
mm,
understanding and idea that if you're just doing the right things, if you have a healthy lifestyle, if you perform well enough, then
yeah,
something will not happen to you,
yeah.
as if there's a supernatural, miraculous protection shield. Now, I do believe that if you live according to the will of God, if you practice healthful lifestyle, etc., it can save you a lot of trouble and a lot of pain, no question about it. But fact is, even good people suffer, and even good people who have the most healthiest lifestyle get sick. And why is that? Because we all live in a sinful world. We all are affected by air pollution and water pollution and other environmental factors that are beyond our control that impact the well-being and the health of a human being. And so the question is, why should this only happen to other people? And you
Mm,
have sufficient examples in the Bible themselves of very godly people who got terminal ill, and died. So why should I be exempt? I
mm,
think we would worship God. Excuse me, we would worship God for the wrong reasons, just
mm.
just to be fine and would not have to worry about this or that. But the real challenge is to have faith in God, even if no miracle happens.
Amen.
I believe miracles can happen, and I have seen that. I've seen that in other lives where
Yeah.
we prayed, we had a prayer of anointment, and cancer was gone. My wife also had prayer of anointment twice, at the beginning, at the end of her ordeal, and she died. So why is that? I don't have an answer to that question,
Mm,
but I know that we are not supernaturally exempt on this earth as long as we are not in heaven from any sinful, evil influences that also impact very godly people. And my wife certainly, and you know her a little bit, maybe,
mm,
uh, she was a joyful person. She was a faithful person. She was a person at peace with herself and with God. And she was a healthy person. I mean, she exercised, she cooked healthy food. She never smoked, she never took drugs. All of a sudden, she gets cancer. So why? I don't know why. This is just part of our human existence, I think, and experience in life.
wow.
I don't know whether that answered all your
No, it
questions, but
did. It did.
what comes to my
No,
mind? Yeah.
it certainly did, and it ties in, I think, a lot with I think I told you a little bit before we started. I explained a little bit. This podcast, it was born out of a book that was written by Fyodor Dostoevsky in the 19th century
Yes.
called The Brothers Karamazov, which is a fictional novel that deals with the topic of suffering. And Love is a non-fictional book that deals
Yeah.
concretely with the topic, right, of
Yeah. Yeah.
suffering and
Yeah.
of our human condition. And in the Brothers Karamazov, there's this very famous quote from one of the like key protagonists, who's this kind of intellectual type, like very atheistic. And it's funny how like sometimes the people that are the most happy are the most revolted at reality. But he says something, he says, and I quote, "It's not God that I do not accept. It is this world of gods created by God that I do not accept and cannot agree to accept." I think you mentioned something I found really interesting. So if we just think about the why, it'll just drive us crazy. And it just seems that a lot of people looking at all, or even ourselves, right? When you look at all the pain and all the suffering in the world and all the injustice, right? Some people get healed, some people don't get healed, some people have too much money, some people have too less money. When you look at all the irrationality of life and the and how and just how life is, how it's not fair, or it doesn't conform to our standard of what fairness is, at least, it can be very easy to be resentful. And I think even, it's very easy to see like resentment becoming a thing, becoming popular. And I wanted to know, in light of the experience that you've gone through, and I think you also talk about this in the book, but what advice do you give, especially I think to our younger audience, our younger folk who are still going to experience a lot in life, um, how to handle like frustration and the injustices of life and the inevitable unfairness, and still have a positive attitude and still manage, to find joy and to find peace.
Yeah. Well, let me say this.
Mm,
First, it is not wrong, I
mm,
believe, to have these feelings of injustice,
mm,
because I believe that we human beings are created by God with a sense for justice. And every human being, no matter what culture you grow up and you live in, there is an innate, I believe, sense for justice. No matter whether you're in Papua New Guinea or in Australia or in Africa or in South America or in North America or in Europe, if somebody takes something from you,
yeah.
steals, people have an innate feeling that this is not just, and I think this is something that God has created in us human beings that might be a little bit covered through sin and selfishness, but there is this feeling of justice. So it's not wrong to have that experience that something is not right. Yeah. The problem that comes is our reactions to that reality.
Mhm,
And here's what I would like to say and make very clear. The Bible is absolutely clear that God did not create evil,
mhm,
that God is not responsible for sin and the bad things in this world. The one who is responsible is Satan.
mhm,
And we have to make that very clear from the outset.
mhm,
Otherwise, we'll get confused about the nature of God and who he is, because that would make him really a tyrant
yeah,
and a person that nobody can trust. But the Bible is very clear that you can trust God, that he is good to the very core and nothing but light, and there is no shadow in him, and he is only good from beginning to end. Now, when you are confronted with injustice and pain and suffering, that can lead to a lot of feelings of frustration, of feelings of anger, and even aggression,
mm,
and even violence, because you don't want this to exist. And here comes the problem, while we have a rightful sense for justice, our sinful human reaction to that injustice often is, how should I say, is just increasing, is enlarging the problem of evil, the
mm,
problem, how we want to solve something that is unjust. And if we resort to anger, if we resort to violence, if we resort to aggression in order to solve an injustice, if it always will increase the negative things in this world, but it will never help to solve it really.
mm,
And that is the paradox that we face as Christians. You cannot change evil and injustice by adding more to it. My anger, my violence, my aggression, my forceful behavior on other people. And so I think Jesus calls us to a very different form of ethics that is revolutionary. And that is so against our normal human grain, what we would like to see and do automatically. And it's, humanly speaking, a paradox that you cannot fully explain. But overcoming evil is possible only in the spirit of love and with love and by doing good and by being a blessing to others. If you resort to the same negative, unjust things just on the opposite side of the spectrum and trying to rectify things that you perceive are not okay, we often just increase the negative things. And that's a problem, I think, with many revolutions that we see in history and in the world. They grow out of a sense of injustice. It's very legitimate. But then in trying to solve that, humanly speaking, they use the same methods for their good. And in the end, we create only greater pain. We create not a better society. And history has proven that there is no utopia on this. There is no, even in communism, you do not have heaven on earth. It's tainted by sin and by the sinfulness of human beings, and everyone who is somewhat open and honest has to agree on to that. So the real revolutionary thing is not to oppose evil by evil. You cannot drive out darkness by darkness. You need to have light. I think Martin Luther King Jr. Made a statement to that effect. And that is what we need. And that would be my appeal, especially to the younger generation who still has the energy or is still, full of passion for something good. And that's good. But don't fall prey to thinking that by force and violence and aggression, something good will come out. It will never, the end will never be good. I'm afraid, but we need to have a different approach and different perspective. And Jesus is the one who really provides us with that amazing example in his own life. And I think the only way forward in changing things for the better.
Wow. Amen. Wow. Thank you so much. That's for those very wise words. And I, I really love kind of the contrast from that you make, right, between love and hate and how we react to suffering. If I guess what I'm understanding from you is the suffering, the frustration, the anger, that's a natural part of our human condition, but it's how we react to the suffering
Yes.
that makes the difference. And in
Yes.
light of that, why I think one like a very important reaction to suffering that you point us to is gratitude. Why is being grateful? Why is having a sense of gratitude even amidst like a painful experience or the most painful experience of losing someone you love? Why is that still important, even when there might be a rational or a justifiable reason to think otherwise?
Yeah. I talk a little bit about gratefulness in my book because it really has changed my attitude and my perspective on things. Why should we be grateful? Now, let me say this, if you experience loss, significant loss, it doesn't have to be death. Death perhaps is the most intense form of loss. But you can lose, I don't know, you can have a car accident and lose your arm or your leg. Yeah, that's significant loss. It changes your life. It changes perhaps even your profession, your ability to do things, etc. That's significant loss. Whenever you're faced with loss, then you just don't think about being grateful at all. All you think in the first place is all the things you don't have anymore, all the things you can't do anymore, all the things that you're deprived of. And that kind of narrows your perspective and your focus. on all the things that you can't do. And I still remember my mother-in-law, she worked as a social worker in a hospital, and she had to deal with people who were hospitalized and then released back home with significant impairment and not the ability to do things as they used to do. And she would always counsel them and say, don't focus on the things that you cannot do anymore. Focus on the many things that you can still do and learn to do. And it will change your life and your perspective. And that, I also think, is part of the experience of gratefulness. Gratefulness changes your perspective of things rather than just focusing on the things that you don't have anymore, rather than focusing on the things you can't do anymore. You discover, by God's grace, the many things and blessings that are still there. And it's like a muscle. If the muscle grows by exercise, the stronger you exercise gratefulness and thankfulness for things that are actually there, that exist, the stronger it becomes. And it is life-changing in the truest word sense of the word. There are scientific studies from Harvard to other scientists who have documented the health blessings and benefits, the many benefits of a grateful lifestyle and gratefulness in expressing that, because it just indicates that you are blessed by somebody else, that there is something beyond yourself for which there is reason to be grateful for. And the exercise that I mention in my book is a very simple exercise, very powerful exercise. I actually learned that from my aunt, who also lost her husband to a tragic car accident. And she said, you just write down every day, take a sheet of paper, write down 10 words for which you can be grateful for today. Now, when I tried to do that, I would not even come up with 5 words. It takes deliberate thinking and an effort to actually think, is there anything that I can be grateful for? Oh, yes, just think about the simple things. Start with the very simple things. I'm grateful for the bed and the mattress in my bed that I can sleep, or that I don't have to sleep on a cold floor. I'm thankful for my toothbrush,
For
that
walking.
I can have fresh, fresh feeling in my mouth every morning. Uh, I'm thankful for my eyes, that I can see the colors and the people. I'm thankful for my hands, that I can write, that I can touch another person. And you just write down 5 things, and then with the 5 things, you create a short sentence. I'm thankful for my eyes so that I can see the colors of and the beauty of nature around me. And then once you write that down, you speak the sentence aloud so that you can hear yourself. Why is that important? Because all the senses, touch, writing, seeing, hearing, speaking, reinforce an attitude of gratefulness in you and anchor that idea more thoroughly in your mind. And at the end of the day, you have 10 reasons for which you can be grateful for. And the next day, you take 10 different reasons. And if you want to intensify the exercise, you repeat the 10 reasons from the previous day. And at the end of 1 week, you have 70 reasons for which you can be grateful for. And I tell you, you cannot do that honestly with an open mind and not be affected positively through that. And it just changes your perspective. Rather than focusing on me and on the loss and on the things I cannot do, it broadens your horizon to the things that are still there, that are still a blessing, that still are beautiful, etc. And it just makes your life so much more happier and worthwhile living and enjoyable. And with it, you become a person who is much more easy to live with than a person who doesn't have that perspective. Yes.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, and I think transitioning a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
there's a quote I really I really loved from an Irish poem that you cite in the book. Death leaves a heartache no one can heal. Love leaves a memory no one can steal.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's like a really beautiful quote. And I think your book is not just about grief, it's also a celebration of life, of someone you loved um, intensely while they were here. And what's the best memory that you have and that you'd like to leave the reader of your
Mm,
wife?
of my wife.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, my wife had a name.
Yes.
Even dead people have a name, you know.
Yes.
And her name is Ulrike, which is a German name that is not so easily to pronounce for an English-speaking person. But the memory that I would like to leave with any person is that she was truly a delightful. She had a delightful personality. She was a wonderful person, pleasant to be around. She had the ability that I envied sometimes to engage with people, even people that she never had met before, in a non-threatening way. And she could just start a nice conversation, and you would feel at home. And and she was a person also who had a tremendous faith and trust in God, and never through that whole experience lost trust in the goodness of God. And that was a tremendous example for me as well. So she was a joyful person, a delightful person, and a person that was very pleasant to just be around. So that's a memory that I would like to leave with others, maybe. And in the book, I write a little bit more about her, and
Mhm.
you'll get a broader perspective of who she was from a different angle.
No, absolutely. And I really, yeah, it felt such a, there was so much content and like it felt like alive. You really brought the characters
Thank you.
and the people
Yes.
to life in your narrative. And I think love is not only about your own experience, but you also teach us how, you know, to help or how to give good help to those who are suffering. And and in your experience, what have been some good ways to be helpful that you found for those who are suffering, for those who are going through a similar experience that you went through, or an experience of loss and grief?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, let's start with what is not so helpful.
Yeah, yeah. That's sure true.
Um, we mean it well. I think everyone means it well. And the phrase that that I heard the most often is, if there's anything I can do for you, just give me a call. Now that is well meant, but it is not helpful help. Why? Because a person who is going through a situation like that often simply does not have the energy even to go to the phone to call, not knowing, is the person on the other line available at the moment? Do I have to explain myself now? And what if the person says, no, I'm occupied with something else right now? And and all that. It's just too much energy to invest. And if you say that, it's well meant,
Mhm,
but it's not helpful for the person who is going through that. So what is much more helpful is that you actually sit down and think, and that takes energy and deliberation. Think what could be a nice help for the person in that situation. What does the person really like in that situation? What would bring the person a smile to his face? What would be a relief to the person? What would be a distraction to the person to start thinking a different line maybe of, or just be doing something else than sitting there for himself? What would comfort the person? So for instance, helpful help would be to see, okay, this is a person who's lost a spouse. Now he has to learn to cook. And is maybe is not as used as his wife to prepare meals, and maybe doesn't even enjoy that much. Yeah, so yet he has to eat something, he has to feed his children. So you could say, hey, I'm grocery shopping right now. Is there anything that I can bring? Or I'm passing by this pizza house, and I'll buy two pizzas for you. What is your favorite topping? And I'll just drop it off. You don't even have to open the door. I'll just leave it there. You take it whenever you have time. And that is a helpful help, because it provides something for the person in that situation that you think he or she might enjoy, that you think, he or she uh, will be grateful for.
Mm,
She would never have asked for that. But if you say, I'll just do that for you. Can I just stop by and leave that? Without having to talk, without having to explain yourself. Sometimes you're just not in the mood to see anybody.
mm,
Yeah, sometimes you don't have the energy just to say it for the third time to a person who has not heard it before. And all this, try to put yourself into the shoes of a person like that. That, I think, is helpful help, and that would be appreciated. Just say, well, let me go with a walk on a walk with your dog, so that you don't have to do that today. Or, I'd be happy to plant some flowers or a little tree for you in the garden. Would you like to help me with that? Or let's go to the gym, or to the sports store and see that we can start a new exercise routine, or can I join you on your favorite walk, through nature, or just bring by some nice flowers that will brighten the day, or write a little card, handwritten postcard. It's nice to text. That's wonderful, but there is still a quality about holding something in your hand that is handwritten, and it just brightens your day and makes life so much more easy and worthwhile. So that would be a little something that comes to my mind right now.
wow. Wow, that's so helpful. I mean, that was also one of the things that I found was really helpful. I think, it was really interesting seeing how your journey, and also those who haven't gone through it, and I think also there's even a a universal component to it, right? In the sense of and bring it back kind of to the topic of artificial hearts. Dostoevsky once said that the mystery of human existence lies not just in staying alive, but finding something to live for. If there's one
Mhm.
thing that you would like the reader of Love Is to take away from this book in their journey in life to find meaning and purpose, what would that be? Like, what message do you have? I think we live in a world where divorce rates are up, where so many people are finding meaninglessness in life, and they've lost, and they don't have a purpose. How has What message would you like this book to have in their lives, and in your own experience, in your own journey?
Guillermo, for me, it's always difficult just to reduce it to one.
Right, or one
One
of the,
thing.
yeah. Doesn't have to be
This
the
is
only
one
one.
thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, there are many things that
it
come
could
to
be
my
more.
mind.
Yeah, it could be more than one.
Um, well, let's stick with the title of the book.
Yeah.
I would say the message that I would like to leave the reader with is love exists and love is. See, self-giving love only exists because God is love. In evolutionary thought, think about this. In evolutionary thought, there is no room for self-sacrificing love.
Mm,
It's not part of the system. Just it would not exist. So, but love exists,
mm,
and that's the phenomenon. And love is, and that is a mystery, and that is something that you just cannot ignore. And it is even greater than our pain, is even greater than our grief, is love exists only because God has loved us first, because God is love. And so to be grateful for that love, however feebly that love is expressed, it's not that it has to be expressed perfectly. Can we do that as human beings at all? I don't know. But however feebly this love is received, is expressed, is recognized, it has a life-transforming power in it that is just amazing. It just amazes me time and again to see that two people who have never seen each other in their entire life, who grew up in different families, grew up maybe in different countries, grew up in completely different contexts, all of a sudden meet. And there is this something that sparks an interest that goes beyond the normal interest for another person that we call love, where your heart and mind is involved. And it just starts something that is utterly amazing, is utterly amazing. And so I would say the message that I would like the reader to take along is to recognize that A, love exists, and B, love is, and it's there, and we need to recognize it, and we need to be aware of it, and we need to live with it and express it.
Thank you so much, Frank. It's been truly a pleasure having you here on our platform and hearing your story. And we always finalize with one like last question. Artificial Hearts is a podcast dedicated to humanizing the hearts that have become cold through secular humanism by disseminating the works of Dostoevsky to a popular audience and reinvigorating and restoring Western culture with the timeless truths and values of the Christian gospel. In a society where people are suffering and where suffering is a reality of our human condition, how has your journey through suffering revealed to you who love is and what it means to be human?
Well, for one thing, I was privileged enough to experience that love in my own life. I experienced that through the love of my wife. I experienced that through the love of my children, the love of my family-in-law, and many, many other friends that expressed love to me in very tangible and practical ways. So when we are confronted with suffering, as you indicated in that little quote from Dostoevsky, and in the world today, love, that would be my answer to that. Love does not ignore my fellow human being who is suffering. Love is there, and love, by its very nature, wants to help. Love wants to comfort. Love wants to release the heavy load that is the burdening another person. And I think, and that would be a message that I would like to leave the reader and the listener with, and that is, we can focus on the negativity. You can focus on the suffering. You can focus on the pain, but it will not create love. But love has the ability and the power to transform that reality of pain and suffering, especially when love becomes practical. In German, I'm from Germany. In German, we have we have a saying that doesn't really rhyme in English. It says, "Es gibt nichts Gutes, außer man tut es." There is nothing good unless you do it, and so you have to practice that. Love is never just an abstract, quote unquote, principle or force or something. Love always wants to express itself. And when it doesn't express itself, it dies. And that is true in any relationship. And so to show this love in, let's say, in simple acts of kindness, in simple acts of encouragement, in simple acts of attention, where I dedicate time and attention to another person. That's an expression of love. Simple acts of care, where I care for the other person, where I see what the other person needs and how to support him or her. I think that expresses our understanding of the dignity of the other person, of the worth and the value the other person has, every human being has, no matter what the color of your skin is, or what your ethnic background is, or what your gender is, or what your social standing in society is. Love is something that can transform everyone for the better. And that, I think, is humanity at its best.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's a perfect way to end our podcast. Please don't forget to buy his new book that Love Is. You can access it on Amazon, and I promise you, you will be uplifted and you will come out better. I learned so much. Thank you so much for your sharing your life story and being open
Thank you.
to us.
And if I may just add to what
Please,
you just said, yeah, and if you like the book, don't hesitate to give it a 5-star recommendation on
please,
Amazon.com.
yes, please do. Please do. Yeah, please do. Please make sure to give it a 5-star. Thank you so much, Frank. It was truly a pleasure having you. Hopefully in the future, who knows, maybe we can do another podcast when you have another book
Certainly.
out, but we really
Yes.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. All the best.
Thank you.
God bless.
God bless.